Alright, so here's an intruder style fly that I'm going to be tying for you today. This is one that I like to tie. Basically, intruders, they're going to look a lot different depending on who's tying them. Everyone can put their own touch. That's one of the cool things about this fly. But basically, if you stay true to the fact that intruders, they create a large profile with not a lot of bulk. They're very castable for their size. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're going to kind of play around with your own style. But this one's just going to be done on an inverted hook. Most intruder patterns that you'll see have some kind of extension so that the hook is set back on the fly. You know, whether it's a tube fly or a clipped shank that has a wire or a braid extending on, holding a hook with like a loop-to-loop connection, or a Waddington shank. Those are all different ways of extending that hook out to prevent short strikes. But like I said, I'm just going to be doing mine on an inverted hook for ease. So I'll get to tying it. So the hook that I'm going to be using is a Teamco 300 size 8. Just a really long shank hook. Get that in the vise. And then the thread I'm going to be using is just a white UTC on the 140. So what you want to do is just put down a base of thread, the length of the hook shank, and I'm going to put a little tag on this with some braid, metallic braid here. Just going to go ahead and tie this on. Secure that, just go slightly around the hook bend. You can go ahead and trap that on. Then just wrap forward. I over wrap so to get the thread out of my way. And then go ahead and just take a few turns. If you get a lump there with the braid, just go ahead and flatten that out with your finger. And then just wrap. Slightly overlapping turns and bring that forward. Just a few turns. You don't need too many. And I'll go ahead and unwrap my thread back to where I want to tie this off at. Just go ahead and bring your thread around. Take a couple turns to secure it in. Clip that. And then just clean that up a little bit. Okay. Now the next thing I do, and this differs from any other intruder style patterns that I've seen. I love marabou, and I decided to try to find a way to work in a little bit of it. When you have marabou that's not very cleaned up at the tips, what you can do is you can just take and pinch it. And then take in between your thumb and forefinger, pinch hard with your nail, and then just rip. And what this does is it creates a nice even tips without the horrible look as if you clipped it with scissors. So go ahead and tie in about the length of the shank of the hook. So now the next thing I'm going to do is make just a little dubbing ball. And this is going to be using some ice stub in a UV hot orange. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a schlappen feather in. I've just prepared this by cutting off the tip and sweeping back the fibers, and I'm going to tie it in by the tip. And then go ahead and do a few wraps, and some people like to fold these kind of as they're working with them. I just most times just kind of make sure I sweep back the fibers as I go, and then just you know, just maybe 2 turns of this is all you really need. It's just kind of creates a hot spot on the fly. Couple wraps just to secure it. Go ahead and clip off the excess. Sweep back any fibers that are pointing forward, and then just take a couple wraps right there. Okay. Alright. Next thing we want to do is tie a little bit of bucktail in and keep this pretty sparse. I take a pretty small clump. Now I don't really line up the tips or anything. I just go ahead, and what I'm looking for is about I don't know, just a little, maybe about twice the length of the hook shank. I go ahead and tie that in. Just a couple wraps. Look at it, make sure it's sitting where you want it to. And go ahead and clip off another clump. And then just tie that in on the side. Okay. Then you can go ahead, just trim those off. Just go ahead and clean that up a little bit, and then wrap back. So now, right on top of the bucktail, on each side, I'm going to tie in a clump of basically ostrich herl. It looks like this, very webby, long fibers, and I like to tie these in just a little bit longer than I guess about twice the hook length. So just a little bit longer than twice the hook length on there. Just make sure you measure that off. So just a touch longer than what you tied the bucktail in at. Let's go ahead and secure that on the side with a couple wraps. And then go ahead and attach the other ones on the other side. And I take a clump of about 7 of these fibers when I tie this fly. I like to keep it sparse. The big thing with this fly is movement. I think that's really the reason why this fly apparently does so well. I'll actually attach a little clip of this fly moving underwater at the end of this. I'm going to go ahead, and what I've done is I've already clipped them, but I have 3 strands of opal mirage flashabou and 3 strands of silver flashabou, and I'm just going to tie these in a little bit longer than the ends of the ostrich herl, and then just run that along the side. If they're a little bit long, you can go ahead and clip them. Okay, so that's pretty much finished up the back of the fly here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and tie in a strip of this is just UV polar chenille, and that's a hairline product. Just catch that in by the end, right on the top of the shank, and then wrap forward. What I'm going to do before I do anything else is attach the dumbbell eyes, and this is just a medium size dumbbell eye in black. Go ahead and attach that, leaving yourself enough room at the front. You want about 2 mils before the hook eye. Okay. When you're happy, just wrap back. And don't worry about this big carrot shape. What I'll end up doing is evening that out with a little bit of dubbing. So now I'm just going to take and put a little dab of super glue right on these eyes, just to kind of hold them in place. Otherwise they have a tendency on these regular hook shanks to want to move around a little bit. So that should have time to dry while I'm finishing off the rest of this body. What I'm going to be using for dubbing is just it's a UV white dubbing. Okay. And you want to leave yourself about at least 3 mils, maybe even 4, right behind the dumbbell eyes, because you got some more stuff to tie in. Alright, so just make sure you're not catching in any of your flashabou. And then go ahead and wrap this this crystal or polar chenille just like a hackle. Alright, so now we just want to go ahead and make another dubbing ball. Okay, so once you have the dubbing ball, you want to go ahead and attach some more schlop and feather. Take a couple wraps, secure that in, and just wrap that like you did before. Kind of stroke it. So now we're going to go ahead and put some more bucktail in. Alright, so basically what I like to do is tie this so that the longest fibers are about halfway in between the tips of the hurl and where the marabou ends. Okay, you can go ahead and flip that over. We're going to do the same on the bottom. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is go ahead and take some more of that ostrich hurl. Remember, I use about 7 feathers, and what you're going to want to do is tie those in just slightly longer than the bucktail, and that's going to put them at just slightly shorter than the ones that you tied in at the back. So just tie this right on top of the bucktail. Grab your other clump. Tie those in same length as what you tied them in on top. Okay, now what I like to do is just put a tiny collar of that UV dubbing on, and don't build it. Make sure you don't build it up around onto the ostrich hurl. You want that to move really freely. So just put that right in front of where you tied in the ostrich hurl. Okay. And now the last thing that you have to do is make sure you got it inverted the way you tie it, because now you're going to take and what you want to do is pluck two grizzly hackle fibers, which is what I've done, and then you basically want these to extend almost to probably flush with the very tips of the back hackle or ostrich hurl that you put in. So you clip them pretty long, and then just clean up the quill so that it's free of any of the little barbs. And then I tie these in one by one, and I like to tie them so that they're kind of pointing up at an angle. I like to bring those, I can show you kind of how I tie those in. I tie them so that they kind of bow out, and then you can see they're pointing up quite a ways because those will really sweep back in the water. And I just take, so I have it basically resting on the opposite eye of the or opposite side of the hook eye, and I tie it in so it's pointing off at an angle, and then I come and I wrap behind the bead chain eye, and that's going to hold that that hackle fiber so that it's pointing out, so that it kind of stays on the side of the fly. And so that's basically what you'll end up with.